Hello everyone, Stanley here and welcome back to another Bedrock Edition tutorial. Today I'll be showing you how to build a very simple and straightforward pickle farm in your Bedrock Edition world. So this thing is super easy and straightforward to build, and it's going to be producing you a lot of pickles in your world. And I mean like a lot of pickles. This thing produces about 5,900 pickles every 5 minutes, which is about 93 stacks of pickles. If you run the farm for about an hour, it is going to produce 71,500 pickles for you. So that is more pickles than you will probably ever need for just about any project in your Minecraft world. To give you a visual representation of just how many pickles that is, this is how many pickles you will get from 5 minutes of running the farm. An entire double chest, and then basically another double chest as well. That is 5,958 pickles in 5 minutes, or 93 stacks. It is seriously so many pickles, you can make a whole lot of sandwiches with this. So let's take a look at this farm, shall we? As you can see, it is quite the small and rather simple build, actually. It's not really anything too complex, and the redstone at the backside is basically it. This is all the redstone for the entirety of the build. So the basics of how this farm works is we are bone mealing this central pickle right here, and that is going to be spreading to all of the rest of these coral blocks. Once this pickle has been bone mealed, we then go ahead and activate the shifting floors to push the floor across, and that is going to break all the pickles and make them pop off as items. The water streams are designed to push every single item into our storage system, and then that's basically it. Everything gets collected into the chests, and it really is quite simple. To show you the farm in action, all we need to do is flick the lever on the backside here, and as you can see, that is going to start bone mealing our pickle. Once it's bone mealed, it then gets shifted, and all the pickles pop off as items. As you can see, they take a little ride, they get pushed by the water, and they go directly into all of our storage hoppers and then go into our chest. We get a lot of pickles very quickly. To explain the basic mechanics of how a pickle farm works, basically pickles have to be sitting on some form of a live coral, so the actual coral blocks. Dead coral and no other blocks in the game will work for bone mealing the pickles. Now there's nothing special about where the pickle has to be for it to get bone mealed faster, unlike what happens with the one tall flowers. So we can have the pickle be up a block and it's still going to have the same bone meal efficiency as if it were down here at this layer like so. So that makes it very easy to farm these pickles. So we have the pickle up a block, and then that spreads down to all of these lower places. It will spread in exactly a 5x5 diamond of blocks. So as you can see, this is 5 blocks across, and it's 5 blocks across this direction as well. If we put coral on this edge right here, then the pickle is never going to spread to those edges. It's only ever going to spread to this little diamond of blocks that's surrounding it. So unless you have multiple pickle plants, this is basically the maximum area you can cover per single pickle bone meal. Now, of course, the easiest way to harvest pickles in this kind of configuration is to move the floor a block over like so. As you can see, all the pickles explode off as items, but now we have to push the floor back again if we want to be bone meal efficient. That way it can spread to all of these other various spots. Now, what we can do to get around that is simply have extra coral in these blocks right here. That way, no matter what position the pickle is in, it can always spread to the maximum amount of coral, even if it's pushed to the left or pushed to the right. So that's basically what we do for this farm. We have a kind of like 5x7 diamond of coral blocks. Just in case you're wondering what happens if we compost every single one of these pickles that we get from the farm in a composter, we're not going to get a profit in bone meal. So if you use 9 stacks of bone meal to get yourself a bunch of pickles and throw every single one of those pickles into a composter, you are not going to get a profit in bone meal. 9 stacks of bone meal in only gets you about 7 and some stacks of bone meal out. So if you want yourself a bone meal farm, I would highly suggest that you check out my crimson fungus farm, which is very, very similar to this design, but that gives you a 40 or so % profit in bone meal. This tutorial is part of my advent calendar for December of 2020. Every single day in December, I'm releasing a brand new tutorial on the channel, some sort of farm contraption or redstone thing for you guys to enjoy in your worlds. We are very, very close to the end, but I still got a couple of surprises in store for you guys to enjoy. Of course, if you're enjoying the videos thus far and want to help support the channel, then of course make sure to leave a like, as it really does help out the video and the channel a ton. If you're new here, then of course consider subscribing so you don't miss all the other tutorials that I'll be releasing in the future. And of course, course, let's hop into the tutorial. To start building, we're going to need ourselves an 11 wide by 10 deep area, and this is going to be 5 blocks above the ground and 1 block below the ground. If you're interested, there's going to be a full materials list down in the description of the video. That way you know absolutely everything you need to build this farm. To start building, we're going to find our center block of the build. So go in from one of your corners and count in by 6 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then count towards the center by 6 blocks. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we're just going to put in a 2-block tall tower of blocks right there to mark the center block. Go to the left side of the build and place in 5 pistons lined up with the center of that pillar, and then do that on the other side as well. This is going to be the pistons that push back and forth our floor of blocks. We're now going to go ahead and install some temporary blocks in the shape of our diamond, of our coral. We're going to install our coral last, that way it doesn't die from being exposed to the air and not having any water. Once you have the basic diamond shape in place, we need to fill in some additional blocks on the left edge for the additional coral. That way you have the 7 by 5 diamond shape. And now we need to fill in the rest of these blocks in all of these areas. That way we can actually have the rest of the floor. These can be pretty much any kind of block that you like, just make sure they are completely filled in, and then leave a 1 block gap right here. We're now going to start building up the walls of the build, and the walls are going to be right here at this layer, going all the way around the back side of the build, and then right here above this gap of blocks as well. And this wall is going to be a minimum of 2 blocks tall going all the way around, but in most areas it's going to be 3 blocks tall. So on the left side, go in by 2 blocks and then start making it 3 blocks tall. We'll wrap that all the way around to the front side and then leave 2 blocks out right there. And this is going to be the basic foundation of our farm. And now we're going to swing around the back side of the build and install all of our redstone. So line yourself up with the center block right there, and then we're going to put in 2 hoppers facing each other right here, right at the same layer as that central block. You want a solid block right here, and then another solid block right there, and 2 upper slabs on either side of that, like so. An upper slab right there, and then also a solid block right there in the corner, and finally a solid block over there on that side. That is the foundations for our redstone. You want a comparator right here reading the inventory of the hopper, going into a repeater, and then of course redstone dust in all of these locations, and that is going to power all of our pistons. We want to do a very similar thing on the other side, so getting yourself a solid block right there, and then of course upper slabs to either side of that, an upper slab right there, and then a solid block right there as well. Place in yourself a comparator, a repeater, redstone dust going all the way along the edge of these blocks, and into a solid block on the end right there. And now for the final bits of the redstone, your on and off lever is going to be going right here. Of course, you can rewire that however you like. Your on and off switch just needs to power this block and lock this hopper, or really either of the hoppers, it doesn't quite matter. As long as one of these gets powered, the farm will turn off. Anyway, we're now going to place an observer facing downwards towards that comparator right there, a solid block above that, and then 2 upper slabs right here, and then we need a couple of glass blocks or regular blocks in these 2 locations, and a solid block right there directly above your central block. You now want to go ahead and place a redstone above all of this right here, leading to that observer. Anytime that this comparator changes state, that is of course going to power your redstone line and bone meal all of your pickles. And now we need to install the storage system for this build. So go to the front left side here, and we're going to place in a double chest right here with 2 hoppers going into the back of it like so. And then we're going to do that on the other side as well. Double chest right here and 2 hoppers into the back side. We can now go ahead and fill in a line of floor blocks all the way in this area like so. And that's just going to allow flowing water to push all the excess items directly into our hoppers. We now need a lot of storage, so go ahead and mine out these 6 blocks and place in 3 double chests to each side like that. Remove these blocks right here and place hoppers into the back sides of each of those double chests, a hopper into the top of all those double chests, and then a hopper into the sides of those upper hoppers like so. And now we need to install the walls going around this build, so you want an extra 2 wall blocks right there, an extra 2 blocks above that chest, and do the same thing on the other side. And now you can just put 3 blocks in all of these locations like so, and that will help keep the hoppers from backing up. So you want the majority of items to land into these hoppers, that way they get unloaded at 2 times speed, and that way they don't land into these hoppers right here and back up the system. If you run this farm for a very, very long time, this hopper right here will get backed up eventually, but it shouldn't be that big of a problem. Chances are you're not going to be running this farm that often, simply because it gives you so many pickles. And now it's time to install all the water sources for your pickle farm. This might seem kind of complicated at first, but trust me, it is actually relatively simple. However, I would recommend following this part of the video first and then rewatching it to actually build it in your world. Don't try building this on your first attempt because you might mess it up and you might have to start from scratch. It is a mildly delicate process and you don't want to turn the entire thing into water sources. Anyway, the first thing that we're going to do is go down to the very bottom layer of the farm and fill in a 3 deep area of temporary blocks completely surrounding our main central block right there. And now we need to go ahead and place a water source in that corner, one right there, and every other block all the way across the farm, and finally one right there as well. And that should create infinite water sources all the way across this entire area for a giant pool of water sources. And real quick, to make sure that this is working correctly, grab yourself a pickle and plant it right there on our central block. If you can plant it, good, that means it's a water source. If you can't, it's flowing water, and you need to make sure that you did all this correctly. The reason why we need water sources at this layer right here is to ensure that all of our pickles get pushed towards the front of the farm and none of them get lost. If we don't have these flowing waters right here, then the pickles will get stuck right underneath the dispenser and there will be some loss in your farm. And now we need some more temporary blocks as well, so go ahead and place in a layer of temporary upper slabs in all of this area right here, and then a bar of temporary blocks going all the way to either side of the dispenser right there. We're now going to place in the water source right here in this corner, lined up with that observer, and then one water source all the way in this corner as well. Let the water flow, and then we can remove all of these temporary blocks in this bar, remove all of your temporary slabs, of course, and then we can remove the very final layer of temporary blocks as well. And now for the final layer of water, we need to go down inside of this thing and place in water sources at this layer right here. Currently, this is downwards flowing water, so if we throw in a random item, such as a pickle, that is going to stay there. It's not going to float anywhere, and you won't be able to place down pickles because this is flowing water and not water sources. To fix this, we need a water source right here, lined up with that piston, another water source right here, lined up with the center of the build, and then another water source right here, lined up with the edge of your pistons. Once you have water sources lined up with all these pistons, bring them all the way across the back of the build as well, some along the left side of the build, and then if we remove this temporary middle block, that should allow all the rest of this to flood into water sources. You can now try and place down some pickles. You can't place down pickles on glass, but if you switch these out for solid blocks, you should be able to place down pickles absolutely everywhere in this room. And that is how you know everything in here is full on water sources. A little update to your wall, you need an additional 2 blocks right here. You should have the 2 block gap be on the front of the build, and of course you need to do that on both sides as well to prevent loss and prevent items from flying out of the farm. The final step of the farm is to install all of your coral blocks. You can use any of the alive coral blocks that you like. It doesn't matter, they all function exactly the same. So now we need to go ahead and place in a coral block at the center block of the build, of course, and then replace all of your temporary blocks with coral as well, again making that 5x7 diamond shape going all the way around the center of the build. If you've done everything correctly, this coral should never die because it's always going to have access to water. You'll also want to make sure there are some blocks beneath these central corals, that way they don't die as well. If you have air blocks beneath like this block right here, then this coral will eventually die because it's not going to have access to water 100% of the time. Anyway, the final thing to do is place in a pickle right underneath your dispenser, a hopper going into that dispenser, double chest for your bone meal, throw some bone meal into the double chest, and now we can swing around to the back side of the build, place any old item into the hopper, and then unflick the lever. We should see the farm activate to get a ton of pickles, and absolutely every single last one of your pickles should go into your storage system as well. Your farm is now completely done and dusted, and you will have many, many, many thousands of pickles in your world. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about today's Bedrock Edition tutorial, then of course let me know in the comment section down below. I'm always trying to help you guys out as best as I possibly can. And also, if you did enjoy today's video, then of course make sure to leave a like, as it significantly helps out the video and the channel a ton. If you're new here, then consider subscribing so you don't miss future tutorials. I have a lot more planned even after the advent calendar, of course. Other than that, I'll see you guys down in the comment section and in the next one. Thank you so very much for watching. And then there was silence.